that's why we were able to build within that 7 weeks, because we were all able to stay in our zones of genius.
Hi everyone, Elle is here today with our next guest, Morgan. Morgan, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I want to introduce Morgan Williams. So Morgan Williams, who after serving in HR roles at Casper, EY, Macy's, USPS, HP, and more, is now the CEO and co-founder of PeakHR, a new cohort-based training program for the next generation of progressive HR practitioners. Awesome. How interesting. I look forward to talking. Yeah, I look forward to talking about it. Well, welcome again. The first question I usually like to ask, and I know we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what is it that you do, but I want to ask, why did you decide to be in this field?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I actually wasn't planning on being in this field at all. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and I am completely fascinated by the human mind, how we think, why we do things. And that was actually what I wanted to do. I was just tired. I was tired. I couldn't go to med school. I didn't want to be a psychologist because I felt like I would always just never forgive myself for not going the extra mile in doing that. And somebody told me I should look into HR, and didn't see the connect at all. I was like, all I know HR for is hiring and firing. I'm not sure that has anything to do with me.
Yeah.
They did HR as well. So I was like, this is just one of my parents' friends trying to be nice, going about this, giving me tips. And she told me to look into it. And she was actually my very first mentor and told me to spend some time with it. And I did. And I saw myself there specifically in like the employee relations and how they make those decisions and how you're engaging people. So it was really then that I decided, yeah, HR is my path for sure.
Awesome. How interesting. Yeah. And then I'm sure you found some connections to where you wanted to be, right?
I use literally my psychology training every day when it comes down to working with HR, because it allows you to think too many incentives that we build into the culture, our perks. This is like why people are complaining about all the pizza parties. That has nothing to do with human behavior, how we reward people. And that's what I like to think about. I like to think about how we know the brain works, how we know how it recognizes rewards and recognitions. Also, what happens when you take things away. And that's what I like to incentivize, to treat that. So I know it's not a Band-Aid fix. It's not something temporary. I know it's going to last, and it's really due on the psychology of the chemistry of our brains.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it is people, working with people, so psychology. I remember I took psychology class also as part of my degree when I did my bachelor back. It's just an interesting subject overall. There's so much. Yeah. So in building your business now, when you started building PeakHR, and I love to ask this question because I usually get different answers, and so our listeners can learn. What are some of the lessons, you can mention one or two, that you would share that you learned in building your own business now?
I think the thing is, it started with an idea. And I know that's really how everything else is born, but there's a lot of stigma that comes with being a woman. There's a lot of stigma that comes with being a woman trying to run business. And I think when it comes down to doing this, we have to fight against HR, the stigma of HR. What do they do? How long it takes them to make decisions and processes. And I really want to emphasize that this was an idea initially. I addressed Catalina, I addressed Kim. And from there, it took 7 weeks from idea to EIN, what I like to say. And that's when we created the business. And I say that what really worked for us is that we're all HR practitioners. Something else very unique. We don't live in any of the same states. We've never even worked at the same companies. So we have very different exposure. We also have never even met Catalina in real life yet. And so that's really what makes everything about this business to me really special, because we're coming with different things. And I would say the biggest part about how we can work and make this work is we have very different personalities, and the things that don't work for me work great for Kim. The things that don't work for Kim work great for Catalina. Things that don't work for Catalina work for me. And so that's why we were able to build within that 7 weeks, because we were all able to stay in our zones of genius, things that really energized us and gave us passion. We could continuously work on that because the things that were low energy or hard for us, we had somebody else on the team ready to pick it up, and that actively engaged them. And so that's what I would probably say. Think about somebody who enjoys doing the things you don't, because that's really the power of our team. We are async. We do not live in the same states, yet we have been able to be incredibly efficient, and it's frictionless. And so that's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. And so to give a little bit of a background to our listeners, it is a partnership between three?
Yep.
Three.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. And in the way that you live in different, even the fact that you live in different states, that's amazing. Yeah, that's so good. That's what makes a true teamwork, right? All different people coming in together with different strengths, complementing each other. That's great reminder. I love that. Thank you.
And we also have different backgrounds. I mean, I am not a mom, but Catalina and Kim, they are moms. So like they were the ones that were really able to put the caregiving aspect into here. And so there's things that I deal with that are very different that they don't deal with, or what it's like being in New York. And so it's constantly finding those balances. And I think that's why our cohorts, when, through application processes, they've all felt heard and seen, because each of us are in there kind of seeking something in particular.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Okay, so I want to dive in a little bit more in more depths. Talk about PeakHR. So it is a cohort-based training program, right? And so if you could tell us something like PeakHR is needed now, and what programming are you excited about that HR practitioners need to know?
Yeah, so PeakHR is needed now. The biggest thing that I would say about that is, if you think about the last few years, we as HR practitioners have honestly gone through hell. It has been so much that we have done. Our jobs have changed continuously. Our departments have been stripped. We are losing functions. We are merging jobs and still trying to be efficient and serve our populations. What's happened within this is that people that have been CPOs or leading teams, we don't have as much time to mentor anymore. And that's something that kind of aided the next generation and populations of HR. That's how I'm here, is by having somebody to really mentor me. And I think we're also leaving very fastly. Like, we're no longer in these positions. It's tiring. I think we're over it to some degree, of some of the things that have just been constantly ever changing. And we just really need a break. Like we really need a break. And I think the other portion about that is, we asked our friends and if they would be willing to kind of speak, because they all want to give back to the next generations and things like that, but it's a time commitment that I think a lot of people don't have. So we were able to ask them of, like, can you commit an hour of your time to speak? Because that could be crazy valuable. And essentially that's what we did, is just went and talked with our friends and asked if they had an hour of their time to give, because we knew we could build something with that. And that would be really, really valuable. And they all agreed, because it was doing something that they wanted to do. We just haven't had time to do. I think with so many people leaving from burnout or just exhaustion or laid off, this enables a generation to grow. And unfortunately, within HR, we also have this thing of, sometimes the CPO won't want to train their director or somebody right underneath them, because they may take their job, and so this allows people to grow, learn from the people that they want to. And something Kim always says that I absolutely love is, in your lifetime, you probably may get a chance to learn from 1 to 2 great CPOs. We're giving you 25 to 30. And so that's something we're really proud of, that you get a chance to interact and ask questions. And that to me is why it's really needed, and why the program is there. So you can collectively grow as peers as well.
Beautiful. And CPOs, just for our listeners to understand what you mean.
Chief People Officers, or you can hear the other, which is CHRO, which is Chief Human Resources Officer.
I love it. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for giving a little bit more detail on that. And how do our listeners connect with you and find you?
Yes, if you search literally my name, you will definitely find me, Morgan Williams. I would say the other portion too is, we are everywhere from PeakHR. It's all together. Think of a mountain. That's our whole thing of scaling, using all of the mountain terminology to really grow your career, pun intended. But with that, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my co-founders, Catalina Coleman, Kim Rohr, and PeakHR.
Beautiful. Awesome. I love that. Okay.
Thank
One of the questions, this is Empowered Global Women in Business podcast. And I usually love to ask this question of all of our the people I talk to in interview. What does it mean for you to be a woman of the world? Because everybody is a woman of the world, building your own business.
A lot. That's a very heavy question. And I think for me, a person of a lot of intersectionality, it's broad in a lot of different spaces, that to me is the woman of the world. And I know that that can sound very cliche, but in HR, we're constantly servicing people. And PeakHR is here to service HR professionals. I'm a diverse woman living in a world, creating processes for people to think and thrive. And to me, that's the definition of a woman of the world to me.
Okay, so the final part of our conversation is rapid fire questions. Okay, so your favorite book name is?
When bad things happen to good people.
When bad things happen to good people. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Favorite international destination to visit?
Iceland.
Oh, I haven't been. Must be
I
beautiful.
literally just went and I can't wait to go back.
Huh? Oh, I have to add it to my list. I have Ireland for sure, but yeah, I thought I have to add. There's so many beautiful places. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Okay, and final question is things that you have discovered about yourself recently.
Ooh, I love this question. Things that I have discovered about myself recently. I think I've worked with a lot of founders. I've worked in startups, and this has really put me in a whole other different position when I think about empathy, everything else of what some of the other people were dealing with prior before me, and just how hard it is honestly to create and dealing with that. And that's what I'm learning. It's the resilience, it's the teamwork, it's the async, like things that sound great. I hadn't really seen them in practice. And I think that's what I'm all experiencing now. And yeah, it's literally amazing. I can't even go into that, but I think that's probably really exciting for me of how I think about it.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Awesome. Well, thank you for playing as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on our podcast, Morgan. So nice to meet you. And our listeners connect with Morgan on LinkedIn. That's where she mentioned as well as Peak HR. That's the name of it. And we'll post a couple of links for connecting with you as well in
Sounds
this
good.
podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.